Aloha class, I wanted to record a lecture so that you have this to help you with your future Engage assignments and also your homework. And so we've made it to the final phase of our audit. We're in phase 4, and so we need to perform additional tests for presentation and disclosure. So this is where we're gathering all that evidence. We're doing our final testing, and specifically for the partner to have a very thorough review of what we've done, and then eventually issue the opinion and communicate the results. And so right now we're doing perform additional testing. Just like we had audit objectives for substantive tests of transactions, so transactions and balances, now we have audit objectives for presentation and disclosure. So rights and obligations, occurrence, completeness, accuracy, and valuation, classification, and understandability. So rights and obligations, do we actually own the assets that we say we do? Did we actually purchase equipment? Was it in the agreement? Obligations, do we owe loans to the bank? And so we would look at those obligations that we've signed into. Classification and understandability, that very last one. Understandability deals with your footnotes to make sure that investors know the footnotes, what they're saying, and can understand them okay. And then accuracy and valuation. Valuation can deal with lower cost or market, lower cost or net realizable value, things like that, how you are going to value your assets. Could also deal with depreciation, how we have different methods of depreciation and how you're going to value your assets. So during which of the 4 phases of an audit do auditors obtain evidence for presentation and disclosure? Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, or all of the above? So the correct answer is all the above. We have been accumulating evidence this whole entire time, and so auditors we've been doing this all throughout our audit, and now we're ready and we've accumulated the evidence for presentation and disclosure. So an auditor needs to be aware of contingent liabilities and subsequent events. We'll go into each of these with more definition. Which of the following is a contingent liability for a 12/31 audit? So customer with a 1 million AR declared bankruptcy after year end. Customer was injured at the company at 12/30/10. A lawsuit is pending. A hurricane demolished the company 1/3/11. So which one do you think is a contingent liability? The correct answer would be a customer is injured at the company on 12/30 and a lawsuit is pending. So we know that we're going to need to pay out eventually or accrue a liability. So we need to plan ahead for that liability. But this and the lawsuit's pending, and we don't know the specific amount. So this would be your contingent liability. This happened after year end, so this might be a subsequent event, depending on what kind of subsequent event. And then this also happened after year end. So right now, the only contingent liability is number 2. 3 necessary conditions for creating a contingent liability. Potential future payment to an outstanding party or the impairment of an asset that resulted from an existing condition before year end. So we know we're going to pay somebody out. We're not sure about the amount. Likely with a lawsuit, you might not know how much the lawsuit is going to settle for. Outcome will be resolved by some future event or events. So once the judge decides or the arbitration, so when the mediation comes in, they can decide the amount. What factors impact disclosure or the adjustments of the financial statements? So you should probably have known this in Accounting 302. So if it's remote, no disclosure is necessary. Reasonably possible footnote is necessary. So more than remote, but less than probable. So you think this is going to happen, but you're not sure about the amount. You would just do a footnote to let your investors know. And finally, probable, the amount is reasonably estimated. So you can estimate the amount, probably through an attorney. If the amount cannot be reasonably estimated, then you would disclose. So depending on the likelihood of occurrence. So Maui Land and Pineapple. I was on the Maui Land and Pineapple audit in 2012, excuse me. On May 23rd, 2011, a lawsuit was filed against Kapalua Bay, the company, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and other John and Jane Does. The suit was by this individual, purchasers of 2 units. The lawsuit was filed in a court because the lawsuit alleges deceptive acts, intentional misrepresentation, concealment, and negligent misrepresentation, among all other allegations with regard. and the company disagrees with the allegation and plans to vigorously defend itself. The company is presently unable to reasonably estimate the amount of probable liability, if any, related to the matter. Accordingly, has made no provision in the company consolidated financial statements. So on this example, on this audit that I was on, do you think it was remote? Do you think it was reasonably possible? Or do you think it's probable? And then you can kind of see what happened. So they said it's unable to reasonably estimate it. So if you can't reasonably estimate it, you should disclose it. And this was a disclosure in their footnote. And this was in their 10K. So they're gonna fight back. They might win the lawsuit, but still they're letting their investors know, and they don't know if it's how it's going to be solved. So they're just disclosing it here. This case, the defective hotel chair and the 12/31/10 audit. On December 30th, Mr. Travel Too Much checked into his Boston hotel room. The hotel room had a circular table with 4 chairs. He sat down on the chair facing the TV. He immediately felt a sharp pain in his hand and jerked it away, revealing that his hand was now bleeding as a result of a puncture wound caused by an exposed screw sticking out from the chair. Mr. Much called for the front desk requesting a new chair and a Band-Aid. And so how do you think this is going to play out? Do we have a lawsuit on their hands? Should we be accruing for a contingent liability? How should this accident affect the hotel's 12/31 financials? Because this was a day before 12/31. No adjustment to the financials, no contingent liability. So he didn't say, I'm going to sue the company, right? He just said, I got hurt, I need a new chair, and they promised to make it right. Potential future payment, he's not demanding payment. Uncertainty about the amount, he's not demanding payment yet, right? Nothing's happened yet. Or it might not ever happen. Outcome will be resolved by some future event. So these conditions aren't present in the case of Mr. Travel Too Much. The revealed customer data at the 12/31 audit. On December 25th, 2010, it was revealed that Mojink company main site displayed customers' shopping history. When Mojink's customer Kristen Decreed discovered this, she filed a $5 million lawsuit against the company on December 29th, 2010. In her complaint, Kristen alleged that the online retailer's careless revelation of customer data demonstrated a violation of the Customer Fraud Act along with breaking the contract rules. How should this affect Mojink's 12/31/10 financial statements? So she did file a lawsuit, and it was on December 29th. And so if we believe this lawsuit is grounded, we should definitely, it would affect our financials if we think $5 million is the results. Potential future payment, she wants $5 million. We're not sure if that's a correct amount, and it'll be resolved when we settle the case. So these conditions are necessary. This is a contingent liability. Consult with legal counsel about estimated amount. So if she's valid and we really need to pay out probably a $5 million, then we can book, which means we record a contingent liability if case is classified as probable. So this would be a debit to an expense, right? So probably a future expense and credit to a contingent liability. So lawsuit expense, contingent liability, possibly debit, expense, credit liability. What's the primary difference between a contingent liability and a subsequent event? And so contingent liability is before year end, subsequent event normally we discover after year end, and so the date of the event is the problem. And so I'll go into the next video about our timing and dual dating.